Welcome to Season 3 of Hines On Air, a new space for voices with something to say where conversations are recorded and remembered, hosted by Matt Hines.
Coming at you from Atlanta, Georgia, welcome to Hines On Air. Hey everybody, it is Matt Hines. We are coming at you live with another Hines On Air from Atlanta, Georgia. And in this episode, we're kind of going back to our roots. Because this thing was started out with this podcast, started out kind of helping people achieve their dreams, inspiring them, providing stories that were inspirational to them. And today we have another business expert. This is Micah Logan. Micah has worked with all different sizes of companies, from the smaller ones to the multi-million-dollar ones. He's gone in, diagnosed problems, helped them resolve those problems, helped them grow, worked with startups. Like, he's seen it all. So we got a real expert in here, and I'm sure he has lots of great information. So, Micah, welcome to the show, my friend.
Well, I appreciate the invitation, Matt, and I'm excited to talk about business.
Cool, man. Yeah, well, let's talk about it. It's funny. I have several companies, and in business, it always seems like in the past, I'll get rolling with one, and I'm like, all right, I understand. I got this. Like, I understand how to successfully start and grow a business. And then the next one, I will struggle like I've never done it before, and I will think I'm like, damn, you're an idiot. Like, this was supposed to be easy. You're supposed to have the secret to this stuff. So I guess there's just something always to learn about a business. Like, it never is easy, or it never, I don't know, goes the way it should. I think I saw Steve Jobs. He was being interviewed one time. This was when him and Bill Gates were being interviewed together. And he was talking about starting a company. And this was in his older years. He had cancer at this point. But he was just like, starting a company is so damn hard. Like, it's just hard. And it was interesting to hear him say that. Somebody who seems to have it down pretty well.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I think the reality for starting a business, an individual going into business, whether you've done it a million times or whether you are just getting into it, things change. I was just reading a book about AI because, everyone is going AI. And it was asking about what is going to be the key to individuals who want to capitalize on artificial intelligence in the future. How do they want to preserve their jobs, essentially? How are they going to build a company around it? And it said, it kind of boiled down the principle of keeping yourself relevant with neuroplasticity, the ability to learn how to stretch your brain and learn new skills and be creative around those skills that kind of will help you stay on the forefront, right? And everybody kind of wants something coded when it comes to trying to grow and launch a business. But specifically what I was thinking about with the book on AI, it was talking about how you have to, in order to stay relevant, you have to essentially be able to stretch your mind and think about different ways to do business. And it kind of brings me back to the reason at the beginning why I failed in my business, which was that my first business, which was that Thomas Sowell, the well-known economist, said that it takes an immense amount of knowledge to understand the extent of your own ignorance. So even if you've been in business for a long time, you're still gonna bump up against things that you don't know. You just simply have no idea that challenge you mentally and emotionally and tactically in the business, and you have to learn.
Yeah, for sure. It's constant learning. You think AI is going to be the job replacer or the world changer that they say it's going to be?
I think AI is going to be similar to what happened with computers, right? So computers replaced some jobs, but they enhanced many jobs, and they created even more jobs than they enhanced. And I know that AI for a fact will replace some jobs, but what I think ultimately will happen is humans will adapt to using AI. Even older folks will adapt to using it on some level, just like they did with QR codes during COVID, right? When they couldn't touch anything and they had to scan menus at a restaurant. People will adapt to AI, and ultimately they'll end up, leveraging it for their own purpose. But what's happening now, what I'm starting to see now, is the democratization of the ability to create apps for businesses that make them more efficient. I mean, I think there's going to be a net positive and a net negative. The question is where that balance is going to is going to be. Is it going to be at 80-20? Is it going to be 70-30, 50-50? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
You got a prediction?
I do. I think it's going to be 70-30. I think that it's going to be 70% positive.
Positive 70, negative 30. Is that what you're? Okay.
70% positive, 30% negative. And that 30% negative is job loss, right? No one likes to see jobs lost. It's kind of almost like we think about the minimum wage thing. It's like some people are willing to trade off the loss of jobs to artificially inflate minimum wage. Some people are just fundamentally uncomfortable with their trade-off. I think that there's going to be a trade-off of millions of jobs, but I think that AI is not one of those things where it is ultimately too hard to learn, even for people who are unsophisticated, to be able to get up to speed on some level to be able to find work. So I do think that people will be able to rebound faster. So 70% positive, 30% negative.
That's cool. I would agree with you. And I don't fear it like, I mean, I've heard the way Elon talks sometimes, you really do sort of see a Terminator type of scenario going to play. I don't know that he seems to really say, they're gone. These jobs are gone. But I haven't, from what now he knows a whole lot more about it than I do. But from what I've seen, it replaced like 60% of a person's job. But you still needed the person for the other 40%. So you really didn't, I don't know. I couldn't like replace a division with AI. The humans still needed to be there to make sure that the AI did its job. So it wasn't like this clean switch where it just replaced human activity.
No, certainly not. I know. I completely agree with you. Well, part of the reason why is because AI, although it's creative in the sense where it will create based off of what initially or from the genesis stems from the creativity from a human mind. Like I have to prompt you to create something beautiful, but really that prompt or that creation that you're making is stemming from my initial creative faculty, my ability to think about something that I want created, and it's just kind of executing for you. But I do think that I wrote an article about the diffusion of AI across corporations. Fundamentally, there are going to be people who, in order to be considered white glove, will have to have the human touch experience. People, I think at the end of the day, since we're such social creatures, will reject a full-on swap of artificial intelligence with human interaction.
Cool. Okay, so I read your bio, and it looks like you were the master of going in and spotting what's wrong with the business and helping them recover. Can you give us, I know I've been through it. Hell, we just went through it last month where it was like, it's like everything's kind of rolling along and then it just kind of crashes and you're like, what the hell's going on? And we've been researching and looking and seeing what's going on. Anyway, businesses are unpredictable sometimes, and I think there's different variables that affect you that you don't know are affecting you. But if you give, I love war stories. Where I'm going with this is I love a good war story where it helps other entrepreneurs or other people that have gone through it feel better about it. I don't know if misery loves comfort or whatever it is. Yeah, we just like hearing, wow, they went through it too, but they did. They recovered in the end and they're better off or whatever. Can you give us an example or two of like when you went in, what were they experiencing, what you found, and what was the outcome?
Sure. So one business I went at was an insurance company, insurance agency, and it was, a smaller kind of mom and pop insurance agency. The issues that the insurance agency had were that they had no systems in place. They had no processes, slow to follow up. They weren't executing on their goals. They had no goals to speak of. They had this wild, big, broad goal of, we want to be a $7-figure million firm. Okay. However, the problem with the goal like that is it's not really smart, right? That's a dumb goal. It doesn't really direct you to a specific action. It doesn't motivate you to kind of, or inspire you to create other processes or systems around kind of getting there. And more importantly, if you've never been a 7-figure business, you don't know what a 7-figure business does. I mean, it's a good goal, but that's why reverse engineering a 7-figure business by simply stating that that's what you want to be and doing things that you believe that 7-figure business do in terms of actions. Now you can understand them intellectually, but it's going to be hard for you to execute them. So one of the maxims that I use when I went in there and I try not to be offensive to the owner, which was that you're a really smart guy, but intelligence without execution is worthless. It doesn't really mean anything. I mean, you can understand all the concepts and business theories that you want, but if you can't execute on anything, it's just not gonna work. So the owner had started this agency. They had grown to a point. They had stagnated in the six-figure mark, and the issues were that the owner was taking on too many of the ancillary tasks of operating the business. I think there were several losses that the owner had experienced in terms of losing key employees or not being able to close certain types of businesses that they wanted to focus on. And he started developing what I call entrepreneurial apathy, which is when a business owner experiences successive losses and they start to believe that they can't execute on the mission, themselves. And so that led him to default to what most business owners do when they have apathy when it comes to their business, which is they just do tasks, right? They become employees again because that's what they know. And so he was just every day showing up and doing things that were not essential to growing the business. As an example, he would say, well, we have to create this agent management system, and we have to get all these systems online and in place. And I want this to talk to that system, and I want this system to talk to that system. And they were using like 6 or 7 systems. But here's the problem. All of that sounds good if you're an operator or a COO. The problem is when you're the head of a firm and you're burying your head in the sand, and you're trying to, instead of executing on a growth vision, you're executing on an operator vision, it kills the morale of the people around you, right? And so your employees don't believe that you're engaged. Your employees don't believe that you have the best interests at heart, and then your decision making goes out the window. That's what happened here. And so the employees, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're probably going to answer. Go, keep going. I don't mean to. I thought you were done, but continue, and we'll follow up later.
Yeah. So the employees started to get, a little bit more jaded, and question ironically, the thing that he had enough of, the intelligence. They started questioning his competence to be able to lead the firm, right? Like anything, like the stock market, like the consumer price index, all of it is all about confidence. How does confidence move the needle? And as an employee, you have to have confidence that your leadership is going to do the right thing every single time. And so he started to essentially slack off on leading the firm to the point where he just didn't, right? So there was no one charting the course. There was no one developing the employees. There was no structure. And then ultimately the employees started, if they need the job, they're going to just get together. They're going to execute their work, and they're going to carry the firm just based off of their job function without leadership. There was a vacuum there. So I had to come in and start there first, and I'll stop there so you can ask your question, and then we can go on if you want.
No, that's okay. I mean, what should he have done? Like, if he saw problems with the processes or whatever, should he have gone to his junior and say, write me a program that's going to fix this and put it on them? Or, because I didn't necessarily see him giving the appearance of incompetency or anything by, him going in and wanting to change a process. Was he proposing stupid things, or what was he?
Well, I think the biggest issue was, if I'm being honest, is that he wasn't content being extraordinary. Now, this is going to sound probably like it's contraindicated, given the fact that I said he wasn't super intelligent. To me, the definition of extraordinary in business is doing the ordinary things over and over again better than anyone else. So executing the same way every single time, in my opinion, is what makes you extraordinary. But those things are boring. But that's what made Michael Jordan, Tom Brady. You're in Atlanta. So pick an Atlanta superstar athlete, and I'm sure they'll tell you that they ate eggs, broccoli, and chicken every day for 10 years while they were an athlete, right? It's those ordinary things that ultimately make you extraordinary. Because he got bored with doing those things, and because he didn't, to your point, hire it out to someone who could execute on that, and he started trying to fill his intellectual capacity with other tasks that were not suited for a person who's leading a firm. You have to stay dialed in to what is going to move the needle. Essentially, what I'm saying is, when you're the head of a firm, you have to be in the position where you can see around the corner. The whole, Wayne Gretzky quote, which is, "I don't skate to where the puck is, I skate to where the puck is going." The point is that you have the ability to see around the corner in your industry and in your business. And when you lose sight of that, you lose sight of what needs to be executed on and when.
Gotcha. So, all right. So we got the problem. What'd you do? Like you say, look, man.
I did. So, one of the things I did when I came in, I'm like, listen, it's funny because during some of our appointments, he would be like, I know that. I really do. I know what you're saying. And I was like, well, what are you doing about it? And then I would say, well, where were your numbers? So what I decided I had to do was this. Sometimes when a person is really smart, the best way to reach them is to demonstrate the holes in how they think about things. Because if you're so smart, you should have thought about the holes, right? And you should have been able to cover all these bases. So what I started doing was saying, hey, well, where were your numbers for this? Listen, how many leads did you get last month? I kept it basic. I actually started simplifying things as opposed to making them more complex.
Right.
Could we have gone to master's MBA level of talking about, debt service coverage ratios and leverage and all this other stuff? Sure. But that's not usually the problem in business. The problem is that you have to get simpler, not more complex. And so for him, I simplified it. I'm like, well, how many leads did you get? What's your close rate? How much in business this month are you going to do? What's your cash flow look like? What do your financial statements look like? And he didn't have an answer for any of that, right? So you could be very smart, but you can miss the simple things, I think, that are actually the guide. And so what I did for him is I started to simplify. So the first thing that we did was, instead of using 5 or 6 pieces of software in his tech stack, we pared it down to 1 or 2. Because his employees are like, well, we're going here for this, there for that, there for this, there for this, there for that. It's creating a frustration. Because he was creating all this stuff, he was also overlooking the fact that they were super frustrated with the fact that he's not paying attention to what they actually need as opposed to what they perceptually need. And that was an issue. So I had to bring him back to reality. So I started simplifying everything. That was the first step.
That's cool, man. That's brilliantly stated too. You articulate it very well. I think it is made overly complex a lot of times too. And when you get desperate, you want to look for that really difficult to find thing that's hidden, that's affecting you, when it's really just going back and let's look at the numbers, like how many leads came in. Did the guy have that information somewhere, or were they just not maintaining that kind of information?
That's the problem, is that it was somewhere. The question, Matt, was where was it, right? So where do you get it from? And it would always be this, let me give that to you next week when we meet again. Let me go and find it, and then I'll send it to you in an email. And so I was thinking to him, I said to him, why don't you ask me the same question about, so I have a few companies that I own or I run. And I said, why don't you ask me the same question? Pick one of the companies I run. I run this company, this company, this company. I said, pick a company, pick a question I just asked you. And I said, go. And then he did. And then I just started rattling off all of the accurate information that I had already seen that morning that showed me what the numbers were for the business. And it wasn't complicated. It was that those are priorities for me in the businesses that I run. And he's just like, I get the point. I understand now. You just know it.
I'm sorry, I missed that last one. Sorry.
I said, you just know it. If you pay attention to your business, it's like paying attention to your kids if you have kids. Right? When they grow up, they don't seem like strangers. You know exactly who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have that information, like gross income, leads, new clients, all that being reported in real time at all times?
I do. At any point in time, I can go in and about 5 minutes or less, pull any information from any one of the 3 companies that I'm running. And I can tell you how much revenue came in that day, that week. I can tell you how many leads came in that day, that week. I can tell you what the conversion rate of each of those leads were, and that salesperson who did it. I can tell you if it was a contract basis, how long it is. I can tell you the return on ad spend for every single company. I can tell you what KPIs specifically to that industry or that business are relevant and with that and what it means. So for instance, in some cases, it's units shipped because I run a couple of manufacturing companies. Units produced, I can tell you very quickly how many how many meetings were set, how much how much there is in AR AP. And so fundamentally from the ground up, you have to think about you have to kind of go back, and when you're reverse engineering, you have to reverse engineer it to a single cell organism, to very, very simple, and then build it back up so it fits your business.
Exactly, man. And I hope if everybody's listening, so people wonder, what does a successful company look like? Because like what you just said to me, they don't teach you in MBA school. They didn't teach it in mine. I got an MBA. They didn't teach anywhere close to that. That is the useful data that people need to know and expect. So, if you're young out there, you're starting a company, that's what a successful company is doing, monitoring that kind of information in real time and always knowing it. Because without that, you're shooting blind. How the hell do you make decisions if you don't know that stuff? So that's exciting, man. Cool.
Yeah,
all right. So the guy, the insurance company,
yeah,
now proposed the solutions. Does he accept them, or is he fighting you, or what's he saying?
he still fights me. And so then what I had to do is I had to blend the simple with the intellectual so that I could appeal to his intellect and I can also make it simple. So one of the frameworks that I use that I love, you probably heard it, and so do your listeners, is there's not a concept, but there's actually an accounting protocol, which is, operational based budgeting, zero based budgeting. You can choose one of those for your firm, whatever fits. But I've extracted the principles of zero-based budgeting into zero-based thinking. And so zero-based thinking to me is stripping down, your processes in your business to zero and rebuilding from scratch. So I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to engage in a zero-based thinking exercise for your firm. I said, I'm going to tell you, I have a firm. It's done $150,000, and I want to be a seven-figure firm. How much money do I have to get to 7 figures? And then we kind of went through it, right? When a person calls me, let's start with the fundamentals. Someone fills out a web form, and what do? How do I follow up with them? How do I make sure that I don't miss it? And then if someone calls me, what do? What do I say? How do I follow up with them? What am I missing? And if somebody stops by and knocks on the door, what do I say? How do I follow up with them? And what am I missing? What should I include in this step? Do I need a tool? Who should I assign this task to? Right? You need to justify every element against your current reality. And, if you take what you're currently doing and you multiply it by where you want to be, it tells you the level of effort. So like effort to me is not a philosophy, or it's not some kind of like intangible. Effort to me it's just a math equation. It's like if I want to be at a $30 million firm or $100 million firm, and I'm currently doing $5 million, I know what the multiplication factor is on my effort. It's very simple. It's not that difficult. And so it's important so I had him kind of engage in this intellectual process, and that changed the game. He started justifying everything and justifying his own thoughts. And I told him, you're going to need to, the smarter you are, the more you have to question yourself. And, unfortunately, and, because if you're the smartest person in the room constantly, and this guy is very smart, it means that you're often not going to get challenged because you're going to be intimidated by the other people in the room who are not as smart as you. So in the absence of someone who's smarter than you need to challenge yourself, and you have to become that third party that challenges how you think. And so he started doing that. And that really did change the game, changed his attitude. And I said, then after that, you have to be a ruthless implementer. Okay, I'm justifying what we need. Once I discover what we need and we pare it down, now let's focus on ruthless implementation, meaning that we do not delay. So my implementation frameworks are all within 24 to 48 hours. If you can't implement a strategy within 24 to 48 hours, then you need to get more simple. Occam's razor. When you're faced with too complex issues, typically the simplest answer is usually the best.
Yeah. That's great. How long did the whole process take for this guy? Like from beginning to call your initial consultation to when his numbers were turning around?
It took about 8 months. The first 4 months we're convincing him.
Really? Might have been fast if you had somebody ready to listen, huh?
Slowly. Yeah, it's true.
That's the toughest part for me in business is the amount of time it takes. Because I want instant gratification, I'll admit it, and it's hard for me. I want to make a change, and then the next week see the numbers rise.
Right.
I'm like, damn it, they're not rising. What did they? And it's frustrating. But like, all right, this process here took the guy 8 months. It's almost a year, but it was the right answer. It takes time sometimes. I think they compare it to like turning around a battleship. You don't just swing the steering wheel and do a 180. It takes a lot of coordination and effort to turn that big ship around. So anyway, well done, man. So they're, after all that, they're up and running and doing well again.
They are. Yeah, no, they're doing extremely well. It came at the cost of quite a few employees and loyal employees at that. But oftentimes that's what happens when you start to do things well, and you have to learn by, making, really bad promises and crazy errors. And oftentimes I get called when people are already so far down the road that there are people frustrated enough to leave. They have to often be convinced to stay. And kind of that's what happened to him. But like, I think at this point what's happening is he's turned it around. He started to simplify, and he starts to use frameworks for his thinking, which is what leaders need in business, right? Because your business will never outgrow your leadership capacity. So if you are a leader, you need to be able to expand your capacity as a leader in order to move the business to the next level. That's where he is now. So he's starting to get to the next level, which is why the business is.
Okay. How many employees does he have?
Well, at the time it was a small firm. He had about like 5. And now he's down to about 3. So,
all right.
Small business getting even smaller.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, I'm going to run out of time soon, but I wanted to just ask, is there any sort of general advice you got for entrepreneurs? I know there's a ton, but is there any sort of guiding principle you're like, this is what I think people forget the most is blah, or make sure you're training your employees or hiring the right people or marketing hard? I know there's so many nice little one-liners that can be thrown out there.
Oh man, the one-liners. So I would say that there's 2. The first one I'm gonna repeat what I said earlier, which is that extraordinary people, are the ones in business who do the ordinary things better than anyone else. Right? They just execute. They pick up the phone better than anyone else. They say the same things more than anyone else. They close more than everyone else. They track their numbers better than anyone else. They come up on time more than anyone else. They read more than anyone else. It's not about being, on the right side of the distribution when it comes to intelligence. It's just about being the most consistent. It really is. The second thing I would say is speed. Speed is important. I have a principle I call the hot potato principle. Once you've decided to do something, you need to act immediately. So done is better than perfect when perfect means never, from my perspective. So speed and boldness beats elegance and perfection. Really, it really does. And so the hot potato principle is that you need to implement, fail, learn, and change as fast as you can in business, because your competitors are moving. You have to assume that your competitors are moving just as fast or faster than you. So especially with AI, and if you're not using AI, they're definitely moving faster than you, and they're going to move faster than you. So learning fast, failing fast to grow fast, I think is critically important. Getting to the learning is way better. It's one of the issues I had when I first started in business, was that I was not learning fast enough, and I ran out of money before, obviously, I ran out of time.
Wow. That's great advice, man. I totally, we preach that a lot around here, especially the second one, whereas make a decision and go with it. Don't keep debating on what is the perfect decision or the right one. Just make one and move forward. I think that's what your point is.
I love it. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and even if you fail, if you're wrong, so someone like me who values employee action is not going to be, unless the action is safe and illegal. If it's not illegal, if you take an action on something that you truly believe because you've thought about it and you're going to go with it, I don't have a problem with that, right? I have a problem with people who know what they should do and they don't do it because they're overthinking. They want it to be perfect. Perfection does not belong in business. Action does.
Nice. That's a great line. That's a great one. I'll give you a footnote on that one when I quote you. That sounds perfect. All right, cool, man. Well, listen, Micah, that's the great story. Congrats to you on all your success and all you've done with business, man. It's very impressive.
Man, I appreciate you. Anytime I have an opportunity to talk about, how small business owners can, get to the next level, the better it is. There's so many good services and products out there that fail, and people will never know they exist because they're dead in the graveyard of good ideas because they couldn't execute. So whenever we can talk about this, the better we are.
Yeah, you got it, man. All right, everybody. Well, listen, I hope you learned something. I hope you can use this information and apply it and change your life. Don't give up. Just find out what you're doing. Keep doing the ordinary, like Micah says, and make it happen. Become successful. So listen, everybody, if you like this episode, please leave us a comment. Agree with us, disagree, add on your own stories, but we'd love to hear from you. Share this with your friends. Like this video, and we will see you on the next Hines On Air.